What's going on, beautiful people of YouTube? This is Renebean and welcome to another episode of Life of a Game Hunter / Collector. We're here in the workshop, we're setting some things up, and you see what I'm about to set up here. The JFJ Easy Pro. This is my disc resurfacer. I had to repair it because a few of you know that while I was removing, it broke. The hinges right here kind of snapped off, and I used some Gorilla Glue. Hopefully it's going to hold. It seems like it is. I don't know. I tried to contact them to get replacement parts, but they haven't hit me back. So hopefully it's fixed. We're going to try it out. Another thing I got my AV cable coupler right here, and I got this because I don't have any couplers on the front of this or any spots to hook some cords. So I'm going to set this up right here, so that way when I test the unit, I can just plug it up, you know, in the front. I don't have to keep reaching around the back. So I think that's going to be pretty cool to do. So we'll set those things up. But man, I hope that thing holds. These things are absolutely impressive. I'm going to do a rundown and kind of demonstrate how to use this thing, but we got to get this thing back into motion. It sucks that was one of the few things that broke during the move, but this thing is highly valuable to me. This thing has paid for itself a billion times over. I'm going to give a tutorial on how to use it, what it looks like when it's done. It's absolutely awesome. But anyways, guys, let's get all this cleaned up. And I know a lot of you have been wondering where I've been, but I've been getting over a sickness. You know, Miss Renebean hooked me up with the jungle funk, and I'm just now starting to feel better. It's actually nighttime, and this video will be a few days of a collaboration, but hey, you know, got to get better. But now I'm feeling better, and it's time to get to work. So let's see where we get. All right, guys. So here we are in the actual workshop. I got the JFJ set up. I'm going to show you how I resurface the disc. I got some discs here that need some resurfacing, some of which are tested and they work, but I want to pretty them up because, you know, I like the customer to get a good looking disc. So anyways, the way the JFJ works, it's trial and error. Like when I first got this thing, it took a lot of learning to kind of figure out the ins and outs of it. But what you get whenever you get this system, you'll get sandpaper here. Believe it or not, you are sanding these discs down. I wrote a C on this one and an S on this one. This is for coarse and this one's for fine. I can't remember what the S stands for, but anyways, we start out with the coarse and then we go to the fine later on. And then we go to a buffing compound, which it comes with, and I keep extra like big bottles. Oh shit! In here with a bunch of other supplies to refill these smaller ones. This is a buffing compound here, polishing compound, and then we finish it off with this. It's like a polish. It makes a good shine on there. But anyways, let's start it up here. And these are all Velcro back, but they stick on very easily. Put that on there. Try to do this with one hand. Obviously, you got to put the disc on. Let me show you the disc before we start. See if I can kind of highlight. Yeah, you see that one's scratched all to hell. Try to give a good visual of how it looks. It's going to be hard to get this on camera as far as like the way these discs are scratched with the reflection. Alright, that's good. Oh shit, scratch worse. Alright, we put that on there. Put our lock nut on there here. Hard with one hand here. Now there's a system. Now down here it gives you time limits. 2 minutes, 1 minute, 20 seconds, 10 seconds. They don't work unless the thing is actually closed, which is smart of them. So we're going to close it up. And then when it comes to sanding, I only do 20 seconds tops. So we're going to start 20 seconds. And you can see it's actually in there sanding the disc down. The disc will look absolutely horrendous when it's done. So while that's working, let's go ahead and put some compound on here. Now, if you don't use it, you know, your first disc, that's why I keep a stack here. The first disc doesn't turn out as perfect as the other ones, and I think it's because they need to be look, you know, I don't know how to explain it, but they need to be a little bit more wet on these pads. You see I'm trying to get all this around here, and you want to be generous to first go through. But after like the first disc, each disc turns out almost flawless after that. Sometimes you get lucky, but it will look a whole lot better than when you first start. Alright, let's get this on here. You want to make sure you get the edges and the inner ring. One of the biggest problems with sandpaper resurfacers is swirl marks. That's why if you look at a, you know, if you get a disc, you buy somewhere and you look at it and it's got swirl marks, you're just like, oh, that looks terrible. It's because they did it wrong. So let's open this up. Now you can see, and we'll try to see on this disc, it's swirled all to hell. It looks terrible, but we're sanding it. So let's go to the finer grit paper here. 20 seconds on it. Need to get me a, these are what I use right here when it comes to these discs. Alright, we got that one. That's going to be the next step. And then this is going to be the final step. And this stuff, you don't have to be as generous because it spreads real easily. It's hard to do with one hand here, but... Alright. And that's just going to give it that nice polish at the end. Alright. Let's see how this disc is looking. One thing I like to do too is check the nut and make sure it's still tight. The disc, it's hard to tell, but it is swirled all to hell. But we're going to get rid of that. And what those two did right there is just took a fine layer off that disc. So now we're going to take this one, which is the actual buffing compound. And this is the one that I'm going to do for the full 2 minutes. So while that's going, we got the... Put this up. Now between each one, after this one, whenever I take it out, I don't have to use that much chemical because the whole pad will be wet with the buffing compound. You don't ever mix up the pads. You don't put this on that, it'll ruin it. Because that's like a very fine, like liquidy paint, like sandpaper type abrasive. So you don't want to mix them up. But I'll put like a dab or two here, I'll show you at the end. And we'll go from there. And I'll have replacement pieces for these things. You can order them on eBay or JFJ's site. This thing is handy. When you see how the results of it turning out, it's absolutely incredible. And people have asked, can you do GameCube games? Yes, oh, absolutely you can. The bad news on that is I don't know where the hell my GameCube backing plate is. I have lost it during the move, so I gotta find it. It does, oh wait a second. There it is, found it. So this is, believe it or not, it's actually kind of expensive to get the GameCube backing plate. Now you can see I have my own special pads for GameCube games because they wear down differently. See, I'll use one for polishing, one for buffing. But you need this special wrench right here and this backing plate. I can't remember what I paid for that. Maybe like 10 or 15 bucks. It's more than that should cost, I think. But I'll just have replacement. Oh shit, that's a full bottle of polishing compound. Son of a bitch. I love it when I find things like that. So anyways, we got a few seconds left on this. Close this up and I'm going to show you guys how it turned out. Now there's steps in between all this. One of the things, like I said, you'll see a lot of swirl marks. You know, if you use like a cheap resurfacer, you know, what are those ones, the ones that you get at Walmart, I can't remember. Those do terrible. One of the biggest key factors is making sure that this thing is completely clean before you put on the polishing compound. I'm going to show you what we're talking about here. Come on now, hurry the hell up. Alright, here we go. Now you'll see there's some gunk. Let's get this out. You'll see that the pad's just a little bit in. The replacement pieces for all this, because you'll have to go through pads. Like each pad can probably do like 100 discs, depending on how you use it. But you do gotta replace them after time, and they're not expensive, man. It's not at all. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this, and we are gonna clean. Oh, I'm gonna have to set this phone down. I think. Yeah, let me set it down for 2 seconds. Get this disc off. And you can't really tell because it's all, it's got some gunk on there. So I take my, always use a felt cloth like this. And we're going to clean it. This one you don't have to be, you know, crazy. It's not going to, as long as your cloth is clean, you can just wipe the hell out of it. It's the next step that's going to really put the polish and the finishing touch on there. Alright, so once all that's done, you clean up your lock nut here. We're going to stick this back on. Put the nut back on. The nut. Alright, we got that on. Close her up. And this, I'm going to give it another 2 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the camera. I'm going to come right back so I ain't rambling on for 2 minutes, and I'll show you what the disc turns out. Alright guys, so here's the disc, and let me show you the final result. Check this out. Look at how much of an improvement that thing is done. There is very, very few light scratches. No obvious swirl marks. You'd really have to pay close attention to see if this thing is resurfaced. This thing is absolutely excellent. It does seem like this is holding up. Hopefully that will. I do see myself having to replace that at some point. I'm going to do another example, just a before and after. This is Mario Kart for the Wii. Look at how bad this one is. This is absolutely terrible. Look at that. That is ugly. So I'm going to go ahead and go through all the steps here. Now, whenever, you know, before the pads, see how much I put on here now? I just spread around. You don't have to do the whole thing. I'll do the same with this one. It doesn't take much. And depending on how bad the disc is scratched, you don't even have to sand. You can just use the buffing compounds to you know, take away some of that. But anyways, this one is bad, guys. So anyways, let's go ahead and pause this video and see how this one looks whenever we get done. Alright everybody, are you ready for the final results on this Mario Kart? You ain't gonna believe it. I'm telling you, it went from that scratched all to hell to this. Look at how beautiful that is. Absolutely amazing. Now some tips I can give you, like why people experience like swirl marks with this machine. Now keep in mind, it's going to be different swirl marks than like what you would normally see with a cheaper you know, resurfacer, like the crappy like $20 ones. This one's going to have you know, the grip marks. They'll be hard to see, but they can be there. But some advice to not have them, like I said, make sure the pads are clean, or the disc is clean before you change the pads. That's going to be a big deal. And whenever you go to actually clean this disc, you take a clean cloth, for the final cloth, you clean the inner ring, get all the stuff off the center. Do not rub that on the disc, because that's going to buff it. That's going to, you know, try to take away some of the actual CD itself. So you make sure you clean it very easily and very nicely, and it'll turn out just like that. That is absolutely gorgeous. One of the things like that does show swirl marks, regardless of how well you do it, is PlayStation 1 games, simply because they're black. This copy of Crash does work, but look at how scratched it is. It looks terrible. I'm going to resurface this, and I'm going to show you how it looks at the final. But since it's black, it will show signs of resurfacing, but it will look a whole lot better than this right here. So check it out. Alright, so here's that Crash Bandicoot, and the results of it are in. It looks a whole lot better. The one thing I have noticed with PlayStation 1 games too that will happen is you'll get this little bit of dotting around the ring. You can kind of see it right there. Doesn't seem to affect it, but it looks a whole lot better. And here's actually a good example. There was that Crash. Here's another one I'm going to resurface. It plays, but the reason I want to resurface it is because it was resurfaced with a cheap machine, and you can see it just looks terrible. This, I'm actually not even going to sand it. I'm just going to use the buffing compound and the polisher, and you'll see that it'll look a whole lot better than this right here. But anyways, let me show you how this one works. Another tip that I want to give you too, give it some time to cool down after 2 or 3 discs, because it does get hot. Heat can, you know, damage the actual whatnots on the disc. So let it cool down a little bit. Some people will have a fan on them. There's been times where I've done 10 or 15 games straight, and that's what you want to do. You don't want to just start this thing up for one machine, because you waste a lot of chemical doing so. Only when you got, you know, at least like 3 or 4 disc minimum to crank it up. But anyways, let's get that going, and I'm going to show you how it turns out. You know, just fixing that without even using the sandpaper, which you do not have to, because that just looks awful. And I've seen worse, you know, a lot worse resurfacing jobs than that. So anyways, let's get this one done, and I'll show you. Alright guys, so here is that Crash Bandicoot, and as you can see, it prettied up a lot better than what it was. So, you know, the final verdict on this thing is it is absolutely worth the money. Now keep in mind, there is a chance that you can defect a disc. I have done it many a times, but I will say out of 100 discs, maybe 1 or 2 will actually, you know, be, you know, broken because of this. It does happen. I mean, it's inevitable. If you take off too much of the memory of the disc, you can mess it up. It does happen. Wii games can be pretty finicky. You know, it seems like a lot of their data is really high on that surface. It does happen. I try to be more gentle with them, but it can happen. But I tell you, this thing is absolutely worth it. Do not expect to get results like this your first time with this machine. Whenever I first got this, before I understood how it actually worked, my discs turned out terrible. They were swirled all to hell. It's an art to you know, get this thing right. But if you have any questions, let me know. You know, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be curious about this thing, and hopefully this video kind of demonstrates it, you know, enough to give you, you know, an educated decision on if you want to get one of these. They're about $130 to $150 now. They used to be a little bit more money, but they seem they have dropped in price. Completely worth it though. I absolutely love this thing. It has saved many a disc. It'll turn a scratched, you know, a terrible looking disc like this into something like this. I mean, the picture on it is not a lie. Whenever you see this picture right here, from this to this, it is true. Do not buy one of those cheap resurfacers you'd get, you know, at Walmart or wherever. They ruin a disc. People, when they see a disc like that, they're all like, oh, they feel like they've been cheated, even though the disc may work. It looks terrible. But anyways, guys, I hope y'all enjoyed this. And as always, take care and enjoy the rest of your day.